questions that are being asked, I'd like to mostly address, so this is my preference, is questions that affect how you walk. Questions about living this out. What he's always told me is, tell them that if they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, they'll be where they're supposed to be. But you need a teacher to teach you what it is you need to be doing. Okay. All right, Shannon.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Okay, so my question, it's centered around love. I'm asking this to see if my mindset's wrong about how I'm looking at love. So here's some context. So we have to do something to earn something. So doesn't that also include doesn't that include doing something to earn love from someone, just as we do what Abba says to earn his favor or his love? Or am I looking at it wrong? Because I'm asking this because in the past, I found myself like having the need to do things for people in order to keep earning their love. And I've learned that it's like some kind of a unhealthy attachment style. Like if I don't keep doing it, I'm going to lose their love kind of thing. Is that kind of like,
all right,
about it?
We're not defining the terms properly, okay? Now, of course, love can come in different forms, all right? And certain forms are actually, and I wouldn't say earned, we'll call merited, okay? Like you did something that merited the response, okay? There's, of course, is eros love, which is the more sexual attraction love. Of course, people earn that. There's something about you that's attractive to the other person. Otherwise, they wouldn't have that love, okay? Then there's filio, there's friendship love. Again, I'm going to have that for you if we have things in common. Remember we talked about that earlier. How many things do we have in agreement that may create a brotherly or friendship love for each other, okay? Which again is merited by the fact that we have things in common. And by the way, you have a lot of people in your life, if you're over 40, that are no longer in your life because you don't have as much in common with them anymore. They were childhood friends or maybe college friends, but you've drifted because you don't have the commonality that love was there, that relationship was there. Then you have the Elohim level, which is really what people think they're talking about, okay, which is the agape love. That's an unconditional love. I love you. You have that or should have that for your child. You created that child, you will always love that child. You may not always like that child. So now we have to talk about that what you're thinking is love is more like. Because like is something that you only feel if the person merits it. Okay, so you may be in a marriage, you go, I love you. I don't like you very much right now, but I love you. And the person might say, how is that even possible? Because I will always love you, even if I don't always like you. Okay? It's easier to understand with the child. Okay? Some of you have children, or you have siblings, or your parents had children that are in jail. They're still loved. Even though they did things that are not approved and nobody's proud of it and brought shame to the family, there's a love there because we're family. And that love does not go away. But you're talking about like, okay? So you have to earn someone liking you. You have to merit somebody liking you because like has to do with you did something that pleased me, okay? When you do something that pleases me, I like it. That's why we say to people all the time, hey, did you like that? Did you enjoy that? Okay? You take someone to a restaurant that you think is great and they eat something and go, did you like it? Not did you love it, but did you like it? Okay? Take them down to maybe something you like, a type of music or a concert or a show or a movie, and the first thing you want to know is, what'd you think? Because you want to know if they liked it. All right? And they're going to like it better based on whether or not it merited because it was something they preferred. Did they enjoy it? So when somebody rejects you, so to speak, by thinking you have to earn their like, it's because you're trying to find a way to jump through their hoops to make them happy, pleased, all right? But if they didn't communicate that I love you no matter what, that's sad. And it's very common, okay? But that's sad, okay? I remember when my children, every now and then something would go on and I'd have to correct them in some sort of strong way, and they would feel like, thinking like I don't love them anymore. I'd say, no, I love you. I don't like what you just did, okay? I'm not happy about that, but I love you. And I say, come here, and I give him a hug, give him a kiss on the head or something, just to remind him, look, I love you, but what you just did needs to be corrected. I don't like what you did. I don't approve of that. You don't merit me liking you right now. Okay, does that make more sense to everybody? So being liked is merited. Being loved it should not be merited at all. It should be unconditional. Okay, that should be really important. If you ever loved your ex-spouse, some of you have ex-spouses, you probably still love them. You don't like them maybe, because maybe what happened was something that created a problem, you don't like them. But somewhere deep down, there's a love because you had that love. Love doesn't go away like that. But if you don't like them, you still don't want to be with them. Do you understand what I'm saying? It's a hard thing for you to, to kind of wrap around. Because people can really have a problem liking each other where they then can't stay together. Love is not enough, okay? You got to like each other, all right? All right? And that's important. And so maybe what you need to tell each other is, I like you. I love you, but also I like you. In other words, you please me. I'm pleased with you. I'm enjoying you, right? Because you don't have to do any of that stuff to be loved, all right? There's nothing my children can do. I'll stop loving them. Nothing, okay? Now, nothing's going to happen, but if my wife and I ever had a problem where we ever got divorced, I would never stop loving her. You understand? Because love is something that should not have conditions on it. But just because you love somebody doesn't mean you have to stay with them, because you might not like them at all, and they might not like you at all. But there was something that caused the love to begin with. So if it actually is real love, you'll always have that, okay? And so hopefully, that clarifies a bunch of stuff, because we have these terms that confuse us because we wrap too much into the one word. Okay, and in all my counseling, this is what I've come to discover. People have a problem not liking each other. They still love each other. Because that's the kind of emotion that's generated that generally leads eventually to something like a marriage. There was something that you loved about them. Now, if you didn't have the love, it was because you got married just because you liked them. Bad reason to get married. You need to have both. You need to have love and you have to like them. And they have to like you and have love for you. But some people, especially when they get married real young, it's because they just like each other a lot. And they're in love with the idea of love. And then they will grow to love each other. Kind of like Tevye and Golda, right? Do you love me? But after all those years of being together, she said, I guess I do, But you can see them in a very Jewish way, yelling at each other, but they still love each other, they don't care. And nobody holds a grudge. Once they finish yelling, they're fine, everything's fine. They don't take it personally, all right? They let things go. All right, so hopefully that answered that question. Okay, Betty.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
I'm going to read what I wrote. Okay. I've been listening to the teaching In Everything Give Thanks. And in it, you stated that someone sometimes will say that this person has a spirit of rebellion, whereas actually what they're saying is they have the attitude of rebellion.
Right.
Well, one of the things I was wondering is the fruit of the ruach. Could those things be attitudes?
Well, okay, I think I like I don't know what I said in that teaching, it was a long time ago, all right? But I like the word nature better than attitude, okay? So you could have a rebellious attitude for a few minutes, okay? But if you become a rebellious person, it becomes your nature. So when you talk about the fruit of the Spirit, and if you listen to the teaching, Understanding the Spirit, it talks about the intrinsic nature. So you have to have your nature become love, joy, peace, patience, etc., right? Okay? You have to have, that's what you become. So it's kind of like saying to somebody, stop that, that's annoying. Are you saying their nature is annoying, or are you saying the thing they're doing is annoying? Okay? Are they an annoying person? Because the first time I said that to my wife, we had just gotten married, she was doing something, I said, stop that, that's annoying. And she got all mad at me because I thought she was an annoying person. I said, no, the thing you're doing, just stop doing it. Okay, whatever it was, making a sound, and I don't even remember anything about it, but I do remember her reaction. I said, no, sweetheart, I don't think you're annoying. The thing you're doing is irritating me. That's why I said that, all right? So the same thing that you're talking about here. You know, the spirit of rebellion means the person may have the nature now of being rebellious. We see this with Korach, okay? It wasn't just him his whole nature was rebellious, all right? Does that help?
And so the other thing I was thinking of is as we allow Yeshua's mind, that nature, the Ruach's nature, will automatically come into play.
Well, no, the more you practice, remember, you can do something annoying. If you do it all the time, it becomes part of your nature. You understand what I'm saying? Especially if you're doing it and you know it irritates the other person, but you do it anyway. Now it's becoming part of your nature, okay? So the same thing with the Ruach and the Spirit, right? Of the fruit of the Spirit that we're talking about in love, joy, peace, patience, etc. That, the more you practice doing it, having love in areas where it's hard to have love, like loving your enemy, all right? Having peace when all craziness is breaking out around you. Having patience when, man, somebody's just trying your last nerve because, or whatever. You know, when you practice having the Spirit, the Yahweh Spirit level of these things, you can have these things when nothing's problematic. You can love things when everything's great. You know, Yeshua says, what big deal? You love those who love you. All right, that's easy. Anybody could do that. You can have peace when everything's wonderful. You can have patience when everything's moving smoothly, right? All these things you can have, but can you have them when it's the most adverse condition to have it? And the more you practice that, the more it becomes your nature. See, people keep looking it's the Christianity in you. Stop looking for it to come from outside. Like he's going to give you this just because you have the Spirit now, whatever. So now you have this fruit of the Spirit thing. No. When you allow his mind to help you react properly to things, so you have love where it would have been hard for you to do, you have peace when it would have been hard for you to do, long suffering when it's hard for you to do, you're kind and gentle when it was hard for you to do, over time it becomes your nature, because that's his nature. Does that make more sense? But you still want everything to come from outside. You want it to be bestowed upon you. No, it's something you develop by putting his mind in yours. In other words, you make choices the way he would make choices. How would he handle this enemy? How would he handle this irritating thing? How would he handle this confusion and chaos around me? How would he handle the situation where I don't really want to be kind, but I need to be kind? How would he handle it? And the more you do it that way, the more that becomes your nature, his nature. Does that make sense? Amen? All right, good. Okay, Selena.
I have several halacha questions, and I think they're quick. So,
let's try it.
All right. So, if I take somebody, like I took my mom to a restaurant for her birthday, and she didn't order a burger with bacon, but is that weird for me to take somebody out and
they can order whatever they want.
Okay. All right.
My mother almost always on purpose orders shrimp every time I take her out, and she's Jewish. All right.
Okay. So one of my brothers is like 6 hours behind us, and we have a little family chat, and they always message on Shabbat, and I don't ever check it till after sunset. Do I need to wait till it's Shabbat for everybody to respond to any of that? I mean, they don't keep anything. They don't even care.
Look, if people are not keeping, then just worry about when your Shabbat's over and they sent you some sort of message, you can call them. Okay? Look, let me say this because it kind of goes to your first question and your second question. You're only responsible for who you're responsible for. And that's you and potentially a spouse. Like if you're the husband, you're responsible for the wife. And children until they turn 18, you are responsible. So you would not let order things they should not order. You would not, while you're there paying for it and everything else. But your mother, you're not responsible for. Okay, your parents, so they can do whatever they want. You're taking them out, let them order whatever they want to order. That's their problem, their thing. Okay, as long as you're not participating, all right, not a problem. Okay, next.
Okay. So let's say it's Shabbat morning and somebody in my house eats the rest of something, can I put that on the grocery list? Is that like a weird thing?
So that you don't forget?
So yeah, so we don't forget. I mean,
That's not a
Okay.
problem. Listen, I understand because later on you're going to go and show, forgot somebody ate the last one of something, and so nobody wrote it down. You can write it down.
okay.
Just don't go buy it on Shabbat, that's all.
Okay, so we were here for Friday night dinner, and we'd already done the liturgy, and on the way home, realized that we didn't have enough gas to make it back tomorrow. It was definitely not sunset, and my bodyguards got me some gas. It felt kind of weird because we'd already opened Shabbat. Is that?
Yeah, but it wasn't sundown yet.
Okay, so it was definitely nowhere near.
No, because I know sundown was like almost 9 o'clock. We finished at 7.
Right,
Okay. So yeah, you're fine.
So,
But but that was a reminder. You might want to plan ahead.
yeah.
Because you've already gotten yourself in Shabbat mode when we had dinner at 6 with our Shabbat service, even though it's 3 hours before sundown. So it would have been preferable to have done that in advance. But I don't have any problem with it if as long as you knew you have plenty of time to do it before sundown. That's what really matters.
Okay. This didn't actually happen, but we thought it did. My husband left the house, and we thought he was only wearing 3 tzitzis. Like, what do you do? Like, we thought he dropped one, but it was just we don't know where it came from. It was a magical one.
So you found an extra one.
Yeah, we found an extra one. So he looked when he got to the store, because I was like, you've got to come back. You dropped a tzitzit.
All right.
What do you do about that?
All right. If somebody, so you're talking about going to services, or you're talking about just walking around in general?
He was going to the store, I think.
No, look, if you're going to the store, you might actually lose one. Somehow they fall off or whatever, and you don't even notice it till you get home. So just wait till you get home and then go ahead and find the missing one, or get another set, okay? If you come here to services, okay, then you can certainly ask, hey, can I give you a set? You could always purchase it later or pay whatever after Shabbat or whatever, but I would gift you with a set, to make sure you have your set during the service, and so you have it here on Shabbat. But, guys, you should be very aware of what you've got on, double check them, make sure you got 4 and the whole thing, okay?
Okay. And then the last one was, if I don't actually know exactly what day we are in the Omer Count, am I actually breaking a commandment? I don't do social media. I know you guys are like, I know when Shavuot is.
Well, good. All right.
But I don't know what day it is.
Then you know where 50th one is. All right. Well, today's 46. But you have the chart if you want the chart. Okay. If you are on social media, and Brianna, post it on social media everywhere, so you have that. But no, it's not a requirement. Okay. He wants you to count 50 days so that you make sure you get to the right day for Shavuot. That's all. Okay. And so, you don't have to do each day and then like, oh my gosh, I forgot to remember today was day 32, this is 40, whatever. Okay. However, I gave you a challenge you're supposed to be doing every day.
I'm not on social media.
No, I've been announcing it from here. You've known about the Omer Count Challenge, and that's why we announced that today is trustworthiness towards friends, so you should be doing the challenge. And it's not like you don't have a husband that has that and places it on my app and everything else.
He started writing it on the dry erase board at home.
Okay, so you have access to these things. Okay. All right. Okay, so you should be doing the challenge. But no, it's not a sin or it's not in trouble if you're not doing these things, okay? All right, Melissa.
Shabbat Shalom. So I have a couple questions. I was reading the scriptures, and on one chapter it said that he is our strength, and on the next chapter it said we are his strength. And so you said again that when you said a couple of Shabbats ago or Thursdays that he only heals us up enough to know that he exists and that he's just watching to see what we do, it kind of made me regress because since I came here, I've been sick and working all the time and dealing with a lot of things, and Elder really told me to take a break. And so and yesterday I was telling him I feel like I've been asleep and I'm just waking up, and I heard the word shut down. And so then I started thinking, okay, he's our strength, and that you said that it gives us the belief to do what we're called to do. Is that correct?
Yes.
So how are we his strength?
All right, because you're looking at things from
a Christian point of view?
No, not a Christian point of view. I mean, it might be. No, the problem is you're looking at things, sometimes we do this, that there's a direct relationship. When he says that he is our strength, then we think that the way he strengthens us, somehow he's saying that we strengthen him. See, and it's not a direct correlation. Strength can be represented in different ways. He is our strength, you have correctly, all right? We, by representing him here on the planet, are his strength. In other words, we represent him. We are his strength. His representation, his power in the world, he has his people. Do you understand that now?
Yes.
Okay?
Also,
So it's not like we strengthen him. We represent his strength.
oh, I see.
Okay, we are his representation of his strength here on the planet.
Okay, so how, I know we can come into his presence by praying, reading the scriptures, but how else can you define how we come into his presence and stay that way? Because sometimes I just feel like I'm a failure and I don't know that I'm really in his presence, and I really have to examine myself. And since I was shut down and I'm really kind of coming to myself now.
Okay, so look, everybody's always in his presence, meaning he sees everything. We're all in his presence. Is he pleased with us at any given moment? Well, it has to do with how we're making our choices and the things that we're doing, right? So some things are more pleasing to him than others. And so you know those things because he gives it to us in his Torah, all right? So if you're feeling in his presence or not, this may be just an emotional thing that you need to work through. He's always watching. You got to be thinking, am I doing things that are pleasing in his sight or not? Okay, and you should know the things that you should be doing. Does that help?
Yes, thank you so much.
You're welcome. All right, I got to ask all of you a question who have struggled with the Ephesians 4:11 anointed, appointed thing. I should pause after each question to ask you to come up with an answer, and then listen to my answer and see if you would have come up with that. Because I'm up here doing this, and sometimes I don't think you guys realize, how that anointing flows. Like the answer I just gave to the strength versus strength, and would you have had that answer? Okay? So many of the things that come up, I just need you to understand that there is something to this thing called anointing. That Ephesians 4:11, anointed, appointed, teacher, prophet, the different roles that are there, right? The 5 different roles. So ask yourself, and also, you know what? Even the elder can ask that question. Rabbi Tom can ask that question because I'm above them. Would you have had that insight? Would you have had that answer? Did you disagree with the answer? I mean, because a lot of you guys are just sitting here listening and not realizing the profound thing you're witnessing. Okay? Now, to me, it's not profound because the answers just come. It's not like I'm sitting there for some magical thing to happen and I get an answer. As you're talking, I have an answer. But then sometimes I realize, that was so easy for me to come up with that. I wonder if anybody else would have come up with that. Would they have come to that same insight? Okay? Does that sound like a helpful thing to do? I mean, just wonder, how would you have answered the question? All right, Grayson, you're going to work on his first. Well, he'll ask the question. I'll ask you guys to think about it. No.
So 2 weeks ago, we were in Luke chapter 16, and we read up to verse 18. Could you explain what is happening in 19 through the end of the chapter?
It didn't connect enough directly to what we were talking about, so I didn't do that. And no, I'm not going to do that now when we only have 30 minutes in a line, okay? So if you want to ask me another time where I could do that, I could. Let me just make sure what we skipped there in Luke 16. All right, so I know what you're asking about. All right. So he's really talking about Lazarus, the rich man, and that whole deal, right? Okay, so that wasn't dealing with what Yeshua was dealing with up to that point, not directly, all right? So first of all, this is not a dissertation, so I will answer it real quickly. It's not a dissertation on, what happens when you die. Because just like everything else we're reading in 16, and when we were in other chapters, I think we're in 12 or whatever in Luke, these are parables, which means that there's nothing literal in the parable. It's to point you to some understanding about something. So this parable, because it seems like it's about life and death, cannot be literally about life and death. That's not the point it's making. But it is making the point about what you're counting on to get you where you need to go. And that's what it's all about here. Because otherwise, this flies in the face of everything that's said previous to this in all of Scripture from Genesis to this point. It says the dead know nothing. It says the dead are asleep. Nobody's going and talking to anybody in the dead, and no, they're not being tortured in a fire somewhere. Although you could imagine somebody who's realizing what I did and my choices didn't work may feel kind of like they're getting all burned up and suffering like they're on fire. But this is what the church uses. Again, this is the Christianity thing again. The church uses to scare you about what happens when you die. Okay? And I'm not going to go through the whole thing and explain it here. We'll do it in another teaching. Let's see, Millennium and Kingdom Part 4. All right, so that's a joke, but this would have been in kind of that Part 4 deal, but this is not the dissertation on this is what happens when you die, okay? But it is dealing with the idea of a certain rich man, okay, is where it starts out. So this is talking about a problem that was in the community of counting on your riches to get you where you need to go, and he's saying that's not gonna work. That's not the key, that's not the answer. Okay, does that answer it? All right, good. So when I went to look at it, I was like, okay, let me just see if it's just one point that took the rest of the verses, and it really is. So I could kind of address it real quickly. All right, Brianna.
I hope this is not a dumb question.
Let me clarify something that your mother said during the announcements. Okay, Brianna doesn't answer questions for you in the Facebook group. She'll answer my answer by calling me, asking me what to say, and then she'll type it in. Your mother wasn't trying to confuse anybody. She said, Rabbi will answer your questions, and maybe sometimes Brianna will. Well, Brianna is still only giving my answer. Okay, just so nobody's thinking that Brianna's answering questions. Okay, all right, go ahead.
So I was gonna ask, I was reading Matthew this morning, and for some reason I was thinking about how I've watched the Father and the Son teaching, but maybe I need to rewatch it because you might have answered this. But I was thinking about how Yahweh in the Old Testament is Yahweh the Son, and then once Yeshua is in the picture in the flesh, here it says in Matthew 3 verse 17 that when he got immersed, a voice out of the heavens saying, "This is my Son, the beloved in whom I delight." Was that Yahweh the Father being able to interact with the world so that everyone there could hear it? Or was that only for certain people to hear? Could everybody hear Yahweh the Father speaking?
Well, no, because Yeshua says that nobody's heard his voice. This is something that, okay, it's not really clear how this fits into, and again, I do address it in the Father and the Son teaching. I know we go through this verse here. Yeshua makes it very clear in several places, no one has seen or even heard his voice directly. So whatever they heard was not the Father's voice directly, but there's a communication that came down to Yeshua himself, which is in other Gospels. It's Yeshua that is the one that's hearing these things, not everybody. So it's a matter of the way the Gospels get interpreted and written out into English. So it doesn't fly against the whole point that he says no one at any time has seen him or heard his voice. So that means that the Father's voice was not the voice they heard at Mount Sinai, okay? And so that's where this plays through, okay? All right, but I do explain it in the teaching.
Okay, I just couldn't remember.
Yeah.
So and then when it says Yahweh through the prophet saying, "Out of Mitzrayim I've called my son," so that's not like Yeshua talking to himself, right?
No. Again, remember.
It's the same thing.
Well, yes and no. Okay, remember, what do we explain that Yeshua is? He's the voice. All right? He's the Father's voice. So he speaks on behalf of the Father. So when the inspiration was given to the writer, when he says in the Psalms where this is going on, this is the writer being inspired that this is what the Father is saying. The Father says, "This is my Son," and whatever, okay? So these are things that, again, are not direct communications from the Father, but inspirations through the message that comes through the Son or the other messengers, again, that are sent to deliver messages, to represent the Father's position on things, okay? All right, Micah.
Hey, Shabbat Shalom, Rabbi.
Shabbat Shalom.
I was in Matthew as well. Now, my question comes from Matthew in chapter 19, verse 3. It says, the Persian came to try to trap him and ask him, is it permitted for a man to divorce his wife on any ground, whatever? And he replied,
Hold on. Have you listened to my divorce teaching yet?
No, sir.
Okay, you might want to listen to that first, okay, because that answers all this. But go ahead, ask your question.
Okay. I didn't know you had one.
I do. It's called divorce, remarriage, and putting away.
Okay, that's where I'm at with the whole point of my question.
I understand. But see, I know you didn't listen to the teaching because you read the word divorce in your scriptures. That's not what it says.
Okay.
It says putting away. It's a different term.
Correct.
Divorce and putting away are not the same thing, okay? And I explained that from the Greek and the Hebrew in the teaching. So when it's talking about here, it says, is it right for a man to put away his wife for any reason? The answer is no. Because putting away was like a scarlet letter mark publicly that woman would never be allowed to marry anybody ever again.
Right.
Okay? But you could divorce for almost any reason. Okay, when you don't like each other, you can divorce it. There's all kinds of reasons you can divorce. But with a divorce, you're not just throwing her out of the house. You're giving a written document called a sefer kritut, which is your certificate that says she can now marry somebody, do whatever she wants.
That's where I'm at with it. The certificate. It says the writ of
there's no
divorce,
certificate here. Okay?
but it is in Deuteronomy
Right.
24.
Because that's talking about a divorce. Okay? Here it's talking about a putting away. Now, he said in verse 7, it says, they said to him, why then did Moshe command to give a certificate of divorce and to put her away? Yes, because when you give the divorce, you're sending her out of the house. All right? But it's a separate thing.
If somebody was to marry that woman once she was divorced.
If she has a divorce, they can marry her.
Okay.
Christianity uses as a weapon to destroy everybody ever to have. First of all, it means that you can't make any mistakes called marriage and have any way out of it. Okay. Christianity trapped you, says every mistake you make, you can repent of and make changes except this one.
Well, my word right here says sexual immorality. So what would that be?
Okay, so the word there in the Greek is porneo, all right? Which really is talking about, in my opinion, okay, it's not adultery. Adultery has its own penalty, which would be death.
And does adultery only apply to a woman, or is it applying to men as well?
Okay, now we're getting more complicated, okay, but we'll get to that. All right, so, and one of these days I will do the Sex 101 class, which will explain all of these things, all right? Listen, okay, let's start off with what porneo is. In Leviticus, when we read about, I think it's 18, when we read about, uncovering the nakedness of the sister or the brother, this and that, and all these other things, that is the stuff that I think is called porneo. That's not called adultery in Leviticus. It's called, whatever it's called. It's these acts that are, okay, remember, porneo is a Greek word versus a Hebrew word. So this is what we would call sexual immorality. Having sex with a beast, man with man, woman with woman. These are all things that are sexually immoral. They're not adultery. Adultery is adultery. Now, I'll explain what that is in a second also. But understand, this here, what he's talking about, is not talking about adultery. He's talking about these other things that are sexually immoral behaviors that then would be something that would throw her out. Scarlet letter, basically, it's a very public thing that you do. Now, bear in mind, that's why it's interesting in Matthew, in the beginning of Matthew, when Miriam is found to be pregnant, Joseph wants to put her away quietly. Putting away was a very public thing. It wasn't a quiet thing. But he didn't think she did anything wrong. He didn't understand how she got pregnant, okay? But he knew he had to put her away because he hadn't done it. And they were in the betrothal period. They actually hadn't gotten married yet, because the marriage had two phases, okay? You got engaged, and then you got married, and then you consummated the marriage. So he was trying to figure out a way to put her away, but do it quietly. It was supposed to be, putting away as a public thing, all right? And so Yeshua said, you guys do this for all the wrong reasons. You just want to mess up your wife. You want the little young thing over there. You want to get rid of her, so you're going to go just do this. So it's a very mean-spirited thing to do unless the person actually did the act.
So that was only directed towards men doing that. The women couldn't put away their husband.
Not back then, no.
But it's
acceptable now? It's acceptable now well, we don't do any putting away, period. We divorce.
Well, yeah.
Okay?
Yeah, I'm twisted up in those.
I know. That's why I did the teaching. So you got to go back and listen to the teaching. All right? Go listen to the teaching. If you have questions, come back the next time and ask the question, okay?
Okay, thank you, Rabbi.
The teaching for all of you out there does explain all these things, all right? All right. Which is really funny, though, because I did the teaching, then I got people calling up going, yeah, but what's about what it says in Matthew 19? I said, I spent 25 minutes on that in the teaching. And then they'll throw that at me like I didn't cover it. I was like, that's like the main section that I started with. Okay? So it's kind of fun. But this actually goes to the same thing happened in the zone meeting. You can only receive what you can receive. So if, Micah will be able to receive this well if he's able to put all that other stuff he's already learned on the side and be willing to hear a different understanding. If he can't, he won't be able to receive it. That's the truth for all of you. If you understand something one way, and I'm going to share with you a different understanding, which I would believe is more correct, you won't be able to receive it unless you're actually open to receiving. Okay? And so that's where we end up with these challenges, all right? Because then people start to argue with me. I say, why are you arguing? I gave you the answer. Now you're having a problem receiving the answer. That's the struggle, all right? Now, divorce and remarriage and putting away is a real tough subject because it's been weaponized so badly by the church, all right? But just to be clear, to make this part, you don't have to listen to the teaching for the details. Everybody is free to get a divorce. I don't recommend it necessarily. Divorces are miserable, but being in a miserable marriage is miserable. So you got to choose which miserable you want, okay? But you have the option, and you don't need to justify it. People will call me up and go, well, I think I might want to get a divorce, but I need you to know what my wife or my husband did. It doesn't matter to me. You're allowed to get a divorce. Some people get real mad when I say that. There's nothing in here to tell otherwise. Oh, but what about Matthew? Matthew's not talking about divorce. Okay? Go read your Greek, go read the Hebrew, and when it's talked about in the Old Testament, there's putting away talked about in the Old Testament too. Without the Sefer Kritut, it's putting away. Putting away is a totally different thing. Okay, you know what the Father did to the Israelites? He put them away. Cast them out. All right? He didn't say, hey, you got a divorce certificate now and you can go and marry anybody you want. Okay? He cast them out. So this is the difference, okay? So, now also the last piece is, yes, a woman can initiate that. So ladies, stop waiting and waiting and waiting on your husband who's never going to do it. If you need to do it, do it. But take it seriously, because one of the things it does say in Scripture is you can't divorce your spouse, then go mess around and do other things, and then say, I realize I'd rather have my spouse back. It should be a permanent thing. I know marriage, we always think of as permanent. Marriage isn't permanent unless you want it to be permanent. Divorce should be permanent. Do you understand? Because you shouldn't do something like that unless it's to be permanent. You don't get to go back to that person. Does that make sense? Everybody understanding that? So you should take that decision very seriously, okay? Very seriously. All right, because if you're going to regret it 5 minutes later because you just got angry for 5 minutes, that's not the reason to get divorced, okay? All right, Pete?
Rabbi, I'm struggling with the term mishpocha, and the reason I'm
Why? You said it perfectly.
Well, it's either mishpocha or mishpacha, depending on...
Or if you're Orthodox on the Ashkenaz side, it's mishpocha.
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 Okay. So the reason I struggle with it is because it's commonly translated as meaning family. And I struggle with that because if family means a group of dysfunctional individuals related by blood, I understand that, but I don't think that's what we're talking about here. My problem is...
it's like when Yeshua said, this is your brother, this is your sister, now your family.
Okay. But in the time that I've been following you and with m.t.o.i. and all that, I've seen my wife and I have formed relationships with people, and before we actually came here in person, we would see people and kind of identify with them and relate them to this ministry, and then when they leave, we have all kinds of questions and some degree of heartache and questioning and angst over that, and that happens quite frequently, that we see people like me who come up here and talk about how great you are and all this is, and then next week they're gone and everybody wonders what happened, and we're reminded often that it's none of your business what they did. That's between them and ministry. And it's very hard.
Unless they choose to share it with you.
Unless they choose.
In other words, you should not, you guys who are watching the live stream maybe didn't get to hear this because it was usually during our pre-announcements or whatever, and during the prayer time, but you have to respect people's privacy unless they choose to share. That's what I mean by it's none of your business, all right?
So that's where I think it separates from family, because if a member of my family gets involved in something, I want to know about it. I want to get involved. I want to see if I can help. But
okay.
That's out of bounds. That seems to be out of bounds here.
No. Okay, you know what? I guess we need to clarify. it's based on your level of relationship, all right? If I have a close friend, and all of a sudden that close friend goes to leave, I might say, excuse me, what in the world's going on? Why are you leaving? But that doesn't mean that just because you're in the same congregation, that's everybody, okay? So it has to do with your level of relationship. And nobody in here has that with very many other people, because nobody does, all right? Everybody only has a handful, maybe, of people with that level of relationship. Yes, so if one of those people ever leaves and you have that level of relationship, yes, you could go and say, hey, what in the world, what's going on? Because you have that relationship, and you'd expect them to do the same to you. But that's not most of what's going on here. Most of you, a lot of you are just nosy rosies and want to just butt your nose in because you want to know, okay?
I think you had talked before about putting something out that talks about what we can expect of ministry and what ministry expects of us. I think it might be helpful if we had something like that.
Oh yeah, we're working on it. We're working on that. Unfortunately, everything takes time, and there's always 6 other emergencies that pop up and distract us from that. Like, for example, I still need to get the Sukkot information out to you. Usually I have it, before Shavuot, and we still haven't gotten to that with all the other things that are going on. So, I've got a lot on my plate, but yes, that's important, Pete, and we'll get to that. All right, Frederick.
I have this sort of a business walk sort of question.
Okay.
In the world that we live in, they've sort of set it up to where, other than the dwelling that you dwell in, if you own that, if you own additional and you're renting it out, that's sort of a field of monetary gain. It's something that people are working for you in, that you're receiving something from them. Is it reasonable to apply the instruction in Deuteronomy when it talks about the release of the servant that you've bought for the time period before the release, that you not let them go empty-handed, you give generously of what you've gained? If you're renting if the tenant is from among the family.
No. Look, first of all, I think you're confusing 2 issues. Look, if you're doing business where someone's renting, it's different than, if you took something as collateral and you need to return it, which is what they were talking about in Deuteronomy. Same thing if you are, quote unquote, an indentured servant to work off a debt, that doesn't go beyond a certain period, okay? But these things are all, the second issue is these things are all land-related things. We don't do the Shemitah and the Yovel here in the dispersion. So we're not concerned with, somebody that's renting from me and they decide to, finish the lease up and move out, that I have to do anything about that.
Okay, I guess this is where I'm coming from. The world's system is sort of designed to begin to widen the distance between the haves and the haves not. The system in the land was designed to sort of prevent that from happening. If we're family, and I'm renting to somebody that's family, and their rent is what's paying for the increase in value of my equity in that, would it be inappropriate to apply that principle to
No, look, it's
that?
never inappropriate to apply the idea of being generous. Okay? It's not required to be in a specific form. In other words, in this, what areas should you need to be generous in and that kind of thing. But if you feel like you would like to give them something on their way out to be generous, that's fine. That's up to you. You can always be generous, all right? That's for all of you, okay?
Okay. So I can take the idea from letting the servant go.
If that's the way you want to interpret that as something to inspire you to be generous, that's fine. I don't know that is a perfectly good direct correlation, but if that inspires you to do something that's completely a good thing to be doing, like as far as being generous, that's fine. All right, TJ.
Rabbi, I have a chapter from Hebrews, if it would be okay for me to read it out loud.
You want to read a chapter out loud?
It's 14 verses. I'll read fast.
What's your question?
I don't have a question. It's just more of a...
Then no, you don't. Well, make your comment. You want to make a comment on Hebrew. What chapter are you reading?
Hebrews 5. It makes me think of you because you watch over us so often.
Oh, this is the one you read to me with the last...
Sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right. All right, go ahead, be quick.
For every priest taken among men is appointed on behalf of men in matters relating to Elohim, to offer both gifts and offerings for sins, being able to have a measure of feeling for those not knowing and being led astray, since he himself is also surrounded by weakness. And on account of this, he has to offer for sins. As for the people, so also for himself. And no one obtains this esteem for himself, but he who is called by Elohim, even as Aharon was called. So also the Messiah did not extol himself to become high priest, but it was he who said to him, "You are my son, today I have brought you forth." And he also says in another place, "You are a priest forever, according to the order of Melchizedek." Who in the days of his flesh, when he offered up prayers and petitions with strong crying and tears to him who was able to save him from death, and was heard because of his reverent fear. Though being a son, he learned obedience by what he suffered. And having been perfected, he became the causer of everlasting deliverance to all those obeying him. Having been designated by Elohim as high priest according to the order of Melchizedek, concerning whom we have much to say and hard to explain, since you have become dull of hearing. For indeed, although this time you ought to be teachers, you need someone to teach you again the first elements of the words of Elohim. And you have become such as need milk and not solid food. For everyone partaking of milk is inexperienced in the word of righteousness, for he is a babe. But solid food is for those mature whose senses have been trained by practice to discern both good and evil. I'd like to say that reminds me of you, Rabbi.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much, TJ. All right? All right, Kathy.
Shabbat Shalom, dear Rabbi and Abba. I praise Elohim for his goodness to all of us, and that he has given you to me as my teacher and my covering, and the growth that I'm experiencing. I definitely haven't arrived. But when you were talking about burnout with Miss Vera and also with Shannon talking about, everybody knows I was a caregiver forever since a child. And my question or my comment to what you said, I have never stopped loving it. I just had no appropriate boundaries on what it looks like. And I praise him and you for teaching us all to be vertically aligned and to start learning and applying it. So I have been trying to do that with my boss, I've been there, I'm going on 5th year. And I had an epiphany. She took me supposedly to a belated birthday breakfast, and I had someone's leaving from the office, and I had my negotiation list, and everything on there I got from you. I tried to set boundaries yet again. This is not negotiable. I will no longer do caregiving. It is not negotiable that I will be doing, she had scheduled me like this, be in the office, go take care of a person I couldn't even physically care for. Just craziness.
Right, I remember.
And this happened just last week.
Okay.
And she's just looking at me like a deer in headlights. Well, our business is very fluid. Yes, I know your caregivers get sick, they get in car accidents, and I've been your go-to girl.
And this has been the thing you've been dealing with in other positions doing the same thing, where it's been all of that.
Yeah, but now I'm older. I can't do it, but praise him. He is giving me wisdom, and I'm learning. And what I really realized was I was expecting her to take care of my emotional and mental health. When my client died on Pesach, I should have had enough guts to stand for myself and say, I need a couple of weeks off. I didn't speak up. She threw me right back into a hospital situation and right back into this. I allowed that. I'm owning that I did that to myself.
Okay, good.
And so I just want to thank you. And I realized no one can take care of me but Abba, you, my covering, my mishpocha, and mostly myself. I was expecting her to care for me. She's not even in, she's got to care for her business and all these people, all these seniors that need help. And so praise Yah. I'm working on it, and I thank you.
Amen.
Shalom.
Appreciate it. Okay.
Learn to say mate.
All right, Marlene.
Shalom, Rabbi. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
So I wrestled with coming up here about this question, so that's why I'm the last person. Yes, the last person. So
I keep thinking each person's the last person and somebody else gets up. So.
yeah, I think Maisie is thinking about coming up here too.
No, she changed her mind. Okay.
She got a piece of paper. No, I'm just kidding. Okay. So in Christianity, we were indoctrinated with this whole thing about the rapture. And so if you're thinking about when Yeshua comes, you're going to meet him in a cloud and go up to heaven and get your cloud and your harp, then, or you're going to be in a mansion, like a really fancy mansion, Anyway, so that's not happening. So I thought that you said that what we're going to do after we meet him in the air is go to war.
Yes.
So if we're going to go and rest and get our harp and strum it on a cloud or, room with gold or whatever it is, then that's something, like, okay, no more weeping, gnashing of teeth, we can be looking forward to that. We get a vacation, like, from the world. But if we're like, if he's coming and we're about to go to war, I don't understand why everybody's looking so excited about him coming. I don't understand. Because, I'm serious.
Because some of us are thinking it's about time this whole world got a smack.
Yeah, but we're going to be involved in the war.
Right, but we're gonna have the incorruptible suit, so it's okay.
Oh, okay.
Because remember, we're meeting him in the air on his way to Zechariah, where it says he'll land on the Mount of Olives. It's going to split in two when all the armies of the world are gathered against Jerusalem. All of this is in the Millennium and Kingdom teaching. Okay, so maybe you need to go back and listen to that one. All right.
I didn't get the part about the incorruptible suit part at that point.
Yeah, no, so it says that we will meet him in the air, but it's on his way to where he's going, which is Mount of Olives, okay, to fight a battle.
Yeah, I did hear that part.
Yeah.
And so then I was thinking, well,
how did you think you're going to go up in the air? You're going to go up in the air in your flesh suit?
Anything can happen, Rabbi. I don't know. He created us out of the dust of the earth. Why not?
Okay.
Look at the Matrix. Like Neo just goes and flies. So why not? Just saying. So, okay, I get it.
Maybe the rest of us get the incorruptible suit. Neo will just fly up by himself.
Well, I appreciate that, because I was just thinking, I don't understand where everybody's like, oh, Yeshua come. It's like, we're about to go to war. What are you talking about?
Well, also remember, it's not the end of it, because he's about to start 1,000 years of getting everything aligned properly. Okay, so it's not like he shows up and it's all over. He shows up and the next phase begins. Okay, so there's a lot to happen.
So you're saying the war is after that?
No, the war is right at the beginning of all that, and that's where he then gets on the throne and takes charge and says, okay, the authority is now here, Lord of Lords, Master of Masters, and now we're going to start all of this 1,000 years of getting things into proper alignment. Okay?
Okay, I feel better. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, Dina.
Shabbat shalom, Rabbi.
Shabbat shalom.
I want to say thank you for your teaching. My question is, what are the potential risks of being too trusting or not trusting enough?
Well, we need an hour for that one. No, look. Okay, they both have very big risks. If you're too trusting, okay, well, let's put it this way. depends on who we're dealing with, right? If you're dealing with an appropriate, proper leadership, vertical person that cares about you, then you should be trusting. And so if you're not trusting enough, that relationship's not going to work right for both of you. If the person's not the appropriate person who should be vertically that you're dealing with, et cetera, then any kind of trust could be too much and put yourself at risk of being manipulated, controlled, hurt, abused, or whatever. So, but you can't be afraid of trusting. What you have to do is vet properly and do the best you can with the trust. Because in a proper marriage, there is no marriage that's going to work without both people trusting. There has to be trust. So without trust, it can't work. But if you have an inappropriate person in that vertical relationship, then how can you trust? Okay? So if you trust, so that means very little trust can still be too much, because you're setting yourself up to really get taken advantage of in some way. So you have to be careful with that. That's where counseling comes in. So how do you go about it? Well, you give at least, you don't give unconditional, you give conditional trust. I'm going to trust and I'm going to verify. I'm going to trust and we're going to see what happens. I'm not just going to blindly trust, but I'm going to trust and verify. I'll give you some opportunities to have authority in my life, and let's see how that goes. And I'm going to trust. And then I'll see how you handle that trust. Does that make sense? Okay, Dina, we're good? Okay, good. All right, Jonathan, you may or may not be the last person, because now Deirdre's sneaking up. You late to the game people here? Okay, go ahead.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat
Rabbi.
Shalom.
I had a quick question from 2 Timothy chapter 4.
Okay.
In verse 2, it says, proclaim the word, be urgent in season, out of season, convict, warn, appeal with all patience and teaching. Does that go to just the teacher, or is that go further as like a brother and brother, a sister and sister, husband and wife?
Okay, so let's understand. Let's go to chapter 1. Okay? Shaul, an emissary of Yeshua, is writing this all to Timothy. Okay, this is for Timothy. There's a letter written to Timothy. Okay, so that would be for someone who has the position like Timothy has. Okay? All right, good. All right, remember, context, context, context. What's the first thing rule of context? Who's talking? Well, we know Paul's talking. Who's he talking to? Timothy. Why is he talking to him? Because he's giving him, both 1st and 2 Timothy are all about leadership type instructions for the role Timothy was being, placed in, okay? And so let's be careful that we do the context thing. All right. Now we'll go to Deirdre.
My question is, in the Omer Fruit of the Spirit countdown challenge, the way that it is on the PDF, is there a specific reason that they're in the order that they are in, or is this just how it was laid out in Scripture? Because I was curious, because we start with love, and that's the most important thing. But then as we're getting closer and closer.
I just took the order from Galatians 5.
Okay.
And then I did also pair up 2 of them, right? So there's 2 different ones that I paired up to make the 9 aspects add up to 7.
Okay.
So, but it is in the Galatians 5 order.
Okay. I just was wondering, because I noticed how trustworthiness was the last one, and it's the last one we get to before the Sinai connection. So I don't know. I was curious.
It just randomly worked out that way, but it was just, I took the order from Galatians 5.
Okay.
Okay, so the only out of order you have is when I paired something up.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right. So as we're going to close up with this, and just before we close, I wanted to say something that's kind of for everybody, so it's here at the zone meeting. All right, some of you need a little bit of a correction. I know you guys hate that. If somebody makes a Facebook post, and it could be something just about their life or some other thing, and you don't have anything nice to say about it, please shut up. I really get irritated when I look at somebody's post about some food or some this or some that, and somebody goes, ooh, that's disgusting. I don't like that stuff. Well, who cares what you like? They didn't ask your opinion. They were just excited to share with you what they liked. But I watch you, and some of you are in this room that I haven't had a chance to go up to personally and say, why do you do that? Did your mother never tell you if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all? But some of you are in this room that I've watched do this. I'm like, what is wrong with you? Why do you feel like you have to throw that ice cold water on somebody's nice, happy thing? We're not even talking about halachic things, which you guys shouldn't be doing anyway, debating on Facebook. But somebody posts something about some nice thing or something they got or some whatever, and listen, just let's be more aware. You don't have to be rude. You may not think you're being rude. Unless they're asking, hey, I saw this thing, I want everybody's opinion, fine, give your opinion. But that's not what I'm seeing. Okay? If you don't like something, you know what I do when I don't like something? Nothing. I don't post. I don't comment on a post. I don't respond to things just because I don't like them. If I watch a video I don't like on YouTube or something, I don't hit a down thing, which I don't even think you can do that anymore, but I didn't give it thumbs downs and all those things. I didn't write a comment. I just turned it off and watched something else. Why do you feel you have to throw this negative stuff on everybody's stuff? Stop doing that. All right? And if you know what I'm talking about, some of you, if I'm talking about you, then own that. You don't have to apologize to me. Just stop posting like that. And these are not posts. These are the comments on the posts. Okay, and some of you have had that thought, like, why did that person post that on my post? It's because they're rude and they're not thinking. They're sort of selfish. They're only filtering through their own thing. Well, I don't know why anybody would eat avocados or whatever, Because you wouldn't. Well, so what? Okay? Or whatever it is, asparagus or whatever. I don't know. No, but I mean, whatever it is, people are posting these things, are excited about it, and so you're not excited about it. Do you understand? Am I being fair? Yep. Has anybody seen these things happen and know what I'm talking about? Yep. All right, let's make it stop, please. At least you guys should stop doing it. The world does whatever they want to do. But I know the people who are doing it. I see their name, and I know who's making these posts. And it's different people, okay? Just let's stop doing that. All right, so